back to WMMA Scene Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson, coming at you with yet another episode of the WMMA Scene Report, our weekly show where we talk about the latest in fight results, news, announcements, discussing upcoming fights. You name it, if it's happening in the women's divisions of mixed martial arts, we're talking about it here. So let's not hesitate. We're going to go right into the fight results. First up, at One Championship Edge of Greatness, a bantamweight fight, 135 pounds. Colby Northcutt defeated Putri Padmi via unanimous decision. Northcutt climbed to 1-1. Padmi fell to 0-2. I'm going to be honest, I couldn't even finish watching this fight. It was so goofy looking. Northcutt was so much taller and longer and just all around bigger than Padmi. It was like, this was some shameful matchmaking here. Padmi fought her last fight at 115 pounds. Here she is moving up 20 pounds. Taking on someone who, at her walk-around weight, and taking on someone that definitely cut weight to make 135. It was just it's probably on, it should still be on BR Live. It might have even made it to YouTube by now. Check it out. It was just it was like one of those old throwback pride fights of like regular sized guy versus a giant sized guy. It was very interesting to watch. Interesting in a weird way, of course. Moving along to CFFC Cage Fury Fighting Championship number 80. An atomweight fight. Jillian DeCourcy defeated Katie Perez via TKO at 3 minutes of the third round. DeCourcy climbed to 3-2. Perez fell to 0-1. This was an action-packed fight. A lot of action, non-stop. Of course, DeCourcy, just her professional experience showed, and was just all over Katie Perez. And Katie Perez, gave a good account of herself for a debutante, but just the experience and everything of DeCourcy, just too much for her this time around. Moving along, also on Friday still, Combate Americas 50. They're in Fresno, California. First up was a strawweight fight between Stephanie Frausto, who defeated Celine Haga via TKO due to, I believe, doctor stoppage at 4 minutes 59 seconds of the second round. Frausto climbed to 7-6. Haga fell to 11-17. Was unable to watch this fight, but from what I understand, it was a doctor stoppage in the very closing seconds of the second round. And then in the co-main event, Carolyn Gallardo defeated Karina Herrera, also in the strawweight division, via unanimous decision. Gallardo climbed to 4-3. Herrera fell to 4-5. I don't think I made a pick on this one because I couldn't watch the fights. So, yeah, moving along. Brave Combat Federation number 30. Now, last week I wasn't sure how to watch this. Turns out it was on Fight TV. You can go watch it again, replay. It was an iPay-per-view. It's Fight, FITE.tv, if you want to watch. Two fights in the strawweight division. First up, Carolina Wojcik defeated Maria Ribeiro via split decision. Wojcik climbed to 6-2. Ribeiro fell to 5-3. This was a good fight. A lot of nonstop action. Wojcik is just a pit bull, always on the attack. But, she, her exuberance and tenacity tends to get her in trouble against bigger fighters, which, she's, I think, like 5 foot tall, 5'2". Yeah, she's 5'2", so she's one of the smaller fighters in the strawweight division, and she tends to get herself into trouble, which always makes for interesting but close fights. So, Wojcik putting another one in the win column. And then, of course, also at strawweight, Samin Baik defeated Manjit Kolakar via TKO due to doctor stoppage in the second round. Baik climbed to 4-3. Kolakar fell to 11-4. This was another fight. If I can't recommend watching this fight enough. Very exciting fight. These two were throwing hands. I mean, they were just throwing power shots. And then in the second, I believe it was in the second round, was in when the cut happened. Kolakar was just bleeding too much. It was above, I think it was above her eye, left eye, and doctor stopped it, giving Beek the win. Moving along, Saturday, Bellator London. Two ladies fights. First one isn't the one pictured. Charlotte McIntyre defeated Josie Blaber via TKO. 2 minutes of round 2. McIntyre climbed to 1-0. Blaber fell to 1-1. I missed this fight actually, but from what I understand, McIntyre turned Blaber's face in a hamburger. And then that fight was at featherweight, and then the flyweight card fight on the card, which is the one pictured. Denise Kielholtz defeated Sabriya Sengal via submission due to Americana at 32 seconds of the first round. Kielholtz climbed to 4-2. Sengal fell to 0-1. This was a super short fight. Sengal started backing up Kielholtz with punches, landed one big one that backed Kielholtz up, and then she missed with the next two, and then she left her chin unprotected. Kielholtz landed a big counter right to the chin of Sengal. Sengal dropped to all fours. Kielholtz followed her to the ground, turned her over with an underhook, took side control, and then landed that Americana, finishing her in only 32 seconds. Very fast fight. I did a full review on it. If you can go look for it afterwards. Sengal was not happy, wants to rematch in kickboxing. And then finally on Sunday, Shudo 30th Anniversary Tour at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. Couple of ladies super atomweight fights for their super atomweight tournament. First up, Yeji Lee defeated Takumi Umehara via TKO due to ground punches at 3 minutes and 21 seconds of round 2. Lee climbed to 4-6. Umehara fell to 2-4. Lee was very, from what I saw, I only got to see clips of these fights because my VPN wasn't working on Abima TV. Lee was very aggressive, landing some really hard low kicks that were bruising Umehara's legs, landing some nice strikes, and then taking her down and just landing some really hard ground and pound. So nice improvement from Lee. Still some things to work on, though, as she moves on in this tournament. And then in the other super atomweight fight on the card, Mina Kurobi, 44 years old, defeated Tanya Anguera via TKO due to ground punches at 4 minutes 52 seconds of round 2. Kurobi climbed to 14-5. Anguera fell to 7-5. This is another one. Kurobi did not look 44 years old in this fight. From what I could see in the clips, was just beating up Anguera. So, good job for the former Deep Jewels atomweight champ. Also noteworthy on this card was the Infinity League winner was crowned. Megumi Sugimoto defeated Satomi Hirose via rear naked choke, climbing to 4-1. She will be the final first round matchup. She got a bye for the super atomweight tournament, and she'll be fighting in January. Okay, so that was the fight results for this past weekend. So let's get right on into the news. Okay, first up, UFC has booked a flyweight fight between Montana De La Rosa and Mauro Romero Barella. De La Rosa is 10-5. Barella is 12-6. And that's going to go down at a UFC fight night scheduled for February 15th in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. More UFC news. UFC 246, June 18th in Las Vegas. It's going to be a strawweight fight between Claudia Gadelha, 17-4, taking on Alexa Grasso, 11-3. And then Bellator news. Bellator 235, Salute to the Troops. This is December 20th. It's going to be a flyweight fight between Tiani Vali, 3-2, and Jamie Thornton, who is 6-5. And then also in Bellator news, Bellator featherweight Leah McCourt, who is 3-1 in MMA, announced via her social media that she'll be fighting on the Bellator Dublin card on February 22nd, opponent to be announced. And then in more UK fight news, UK flyweight Bernice Aldiss announced on her Instagram that she has signed with One Championship, making her the first female fighter from the UK to do so. Her debut fight and opponent is to be announced. Aldiss has a 3-0 record in mixed martial arts. And then UFC Fight Night Brasilia, March 14th. It's going to be a strawweight fight between Paige Van Zant, who is 8-4, and Amanda Hebus, 8-1. This is a tough fight for Van Zant, on her UFC contract. And then tough Ultimate Fighter veteran Julia Stoliarenko announced via her Instagram that she has signed with the all-female fight promotion Invicta FC. She currently carries a professional record of 8-3-1. She was on the featherweight season of Ultimate Fighter, probably going to be dropping back down to bantamweight. And then UFC Fight Night Washington, D.C. on December 7th, this coming weekend. Mallory Martin, 6-2, will be stepping in for Livia Hanata Souza to face Werner Jandiroba, 14-1. This is actually going to be the third opponent for Werner Jandiroba. Mallory Martin moving up from Invicta FC. She had also fought earlier this summer for Dana White's Contender Series. And then Legend FC, Chinese promotion Legend FC. Their 14th event is December 28th in Macau. They have a strawweight fight between Ji Miao, 8-3, who's taking on Ji Lu, who is 1-0. So big discrepancy in experience and I believe age as well there. And then Deep Jewels 27, December 22nd in Osaka, announced a minus 54 kilogram catchweight fight between Asami Nakai, 3-2, and Shi Yun Park, who is 1-2. And I'll be honest, out of the fights I've seen announced for this card, this is probably the best fight so far, which tells you how weak it's going to be. Very disappointing card from what I've seen for Deep Jewels. All-female promotion in Japan. And then finally, at GMC, and I believe this stands for German MMA Championship, number 24. I don't have a date or location set for this. Flyweight bout between Katarina Lenner, 7-2, and Maybelline Lima, 9-1. Lenner is a former Invicta FC bantamweight title challenger. So that was the news for this week. Now, normally I would go into the UFC rankings updates, but there wasn't a UFC event this past weekend, so there were no, and surprisingly, there were no ranking changes at all. Sometimes, even if there isn't an event or there isn't any ladies' fights, the rankings change, but I haven't seen any for this week. So that's actually a good thing. And then, of course, we go to our Welcome to the Scene, where we welcome some of the newest named subscribers. So welcome to Year 772001 and Keela Lemus. Welcome to the scene. Again, if you subscribe to the channel and your subscriptions are public, I'll get notified who the named subscriber is and include you in this segment. Of course, there are no upcoming fights for this weekend. Unfortunately, it is a dead weekend for MMA just after Thanksgiving in the U.S. Normally, I try to have this out by Wednesday. I'm recording and hopefully publish this on Friday. So we're going to move along. I do have a discussion topic for this week, and it's about a master and student combo. Both are arguably all-time greats. Well, one of them is inarguably an all-time great. In the women's divisions, we're going to look at Megumi Fujii and Ayaka Hamasaki. Both are, Japanese. Hamasaki was trained by Fujii, although she's not much younger than Fujii. Fujii, I believe, is 44 right now, 45. Hamasaki, not too much younger at 37. Both trained for years out of Abeani Combat Club. Fujii now coaches at her husband's gym. So I want to talk about, has Hamasaki already garnered a legacy that is better than Fujii's? Fujii, if you're watching this channel, you probably already know who she is. If you don't know who she is like one of the pioneers of female mixed martial arts. Was around since 2004. Started her career, went on an incredibly long winning streak, and then Hamasaki also incredible record. Fujii is 26-3 for a total of 29 fights. Hamasaki is 19-2 for a total of 21 fights. Now, Fujii had a career length of 9 years. Hamasaki is currently in her 10th year of competing and is still going, hasn't showed any signs of slowing down. As far as their win streaks go, Fujii had I believe it's a women's division's record 22 win undefeated streak, whereas Hamasaki is lesser at 9. Was her longest win streak. But we're going to break down those records a little more. Now, one of the things that a lot of people like to bring up is, and I agree with this, you have to look at the era in which each fighter fought. Fujii fought in an earlier era where the fighters weren't necessarily as evolved as they are now, whereas Hamasaki is fighting in the more modern era. And I don't have a problem with looking at eras and going, well, it's a different era, because it happens in every sport. People always want to go with the more recent, player or fighter, whatever, as being better than the old timers, saying, well, the old timers wouldn't be able to compete nowadays. Well, the fighters from nowadays might not necessarily have been able to compete in the old timers, when they were younger. Rules change over time. Competitors change. Players evolve. The sport evolves. Now, as far as fighting in her era, Megumi Fujii was way ahead of her time. She was one of the few fighters in the now defunct all-women's promotion Smack Girl. She's one of the few fighters that got to fight with full rules and a full time limit. Smack Girl was notorious for having limited time allotted if the fight got taken to the ground, and basically no ground and pound or no shots to the head. With Fujii, she got to run the full rules. Got to do ground and pound, no time limit on the ground, etc. And then, her win streak carried her all the way up to the Bellator strawweight tournament back in 2011, 2010, losing a split decision to Zoila Frausto. And then you compare that to Hamasaki, who is not only more dominant in her own era, but it's very easy to make the argument that she is fighting in a better era with deeper competition, more experienced fighters, more well-rounded fighters. So, really, if you look at the two and compare their eras, to me personally, I think Hamasaki is fighting the tougher competition overall in a much deeper era. Now that, of course, you have to look at parity, and Fujii did fight in an older era. She was definitely ahead of her time. Now, as far as a legacy fight. Every fighter almost has a legacy fight a fight that could make or break their career, or an opponent that everybody wants to see a fighter fight. For Megumi Fujii, it was Yuka Tsuji. Yuka Tsuji also had an extremely deep record. Let me see. She retired at 24-3. Now, for whatever reason, even though they fought sometimes in the same promotion, after a while they stopped fighting in the same promotion. Oh no, they both fought in Smack Girl. Fujii went to Jules. Tsuji went to Valkyrie, and then Valkyrie didn't last very long, so Tsuji went to Jules. For whatever reason, Fujii and Tsuji never faced off, and that would have been like the fight to make in the women's divisions back then. Two fighters with huge win streaks, both super dominant. For whatever reason, Fujii never got that legacy fight with Yuka Tsuji. Now, Ayaka Hamasaki did get to face Yuka Tsuji. Ayaka Hamasaki faced Fujii in her in only her 7th fight. Tsuji was 23-2 at the time in 2012. Megumi Fujii was 7-2. Hamasaki got to face Tsuji when she was 7-0 at the time, and defeated Yuka Tsuji via Kimura at 3 minutes and 41 seconds of round number 1. So Fujii never got to fight her legacy fight. Hamasaki actually ended up beating what would have been Fujii's big, huge legacy fight. Now, as far as a legacy fight for Hamasaki, it's tough to say. She's beaten just about everybody except Claudia Gadelha and Livia Souza at strawweight. It's really hard to pick out an actual legacy fight, though, for Hamasaki herself. Arguably, her next fight against Sahi Ham on New Year's Eve. It's the 3rd time they'll face each other. Now, Hamasaki already beat Ham twice, but Ham has been just destroying chicks ever since she moved back down to atomweight a couple years ago. She's finished 4 out of her last 5 opponents. This could arguably be Hamasaki's legacy fight. Now, Hamasaki has had some trouble against each of her last, several opponents. Really, ever since she came back to Rizin in May of 2018, she's had some trouble with a lot of her opponents. She even had some trouble with her atomweight opponents in Invicta, although she managed to beat all of them. So, to me, I think that the next upcoming fight for Hamasaki against Sahi Ham, even though she's already beaten Ham twice, I think this is going to be the legacy-defining fight for her, defending the Rizin title against Ham. Now, finally, let's talk about these fighters' strengths of schedule. Okay, you look at Megumi Fujii's record and her strength of schedule. There is a lot of what I would call, you could even say it's objectively can-crushing in Fujii's record. 12-0 fighting debutante Mika Nagano. 13-0 defeated 1-0 Cindy Hales. 14-0 defeated Sahi Ham, who was only 4-2 at the time. 15-0 Tomoko Morii, making her debut. 16-0 defeated Unbun Che, who was again a debutante. She took on a couple tougher fights after that. Goes to Bellator. 19-0 defeated Sarah Schneider, who was 4-4 at the time. Her next fight in Bellator, Carla Esparza, was 3-0 at the time. Fujii was 20-0. And then that's when she started taking on more experienced opponents again. And then, of course, she started taking some losses there as well. She lost the Zoila Frausto fight by a very close split decision. a few fights later, lost to Jessica Aguilar via unanimous decision, and then retired on her third loss to Jessica Aguilar again in a rematch via technical majority. But that's, how many in a row did I count? Two. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's at least 5 fights in the middle of her career that she was way too good to be taking on. Now, I already know what the Fujii defenders are going to say. Well, she only fought whoever was put in front of her. She just, she fought whoever was put in front of her. She didn't, have a choice. There's always a choice. You can always say no to a fight. Unless you were absolutely broke and need to fight just for the money, you can always say no to an opponent. If you're 13-0 taking on a fighter who's 1-0, I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that. You can always tell the promoter, hey, please find me better opponents. Please stop giving me fighters who haven't even fought in MMA before. Just give me better opponents. To me, there's no excuse for that can crushing. I don't want to hear, well, she only fought whoever was put in front of her. Yeah. These opponents got put in front of her and she destroyed them. She was way too experienced to be taking them on. Now you look at Ayaka Hamasaki's record, meanwhile. She's regularly fighting stronger opponents. For example, she was, 6-0 at the time, took on Yuka Tsuji, who was 23-2 at the time. A fight before that, she was 5-0, took on Sahi Ham, who was 10-4 at the time. She was 8-0, took on Emi Fujino, who was 11-5 at the time, way more experienced. Took on Claudia Gadelia in that time period. And then that was when she really started fighting more often in Invicta. And she was facing consistently top-level opponents in Invicta, especially at atomweight. Amber Brown came back to defeat Amber Brown, almost lost that fight. Jinyu Fry, Hamasaki was losing that fight and then got the cut to win. Mina Karobi was a nice fight to take on. She was the Deep Jewels champ at the time. Defeated her. Next fight took on Kana Asakura, who was 13-2 at the time. Rematched Jinyu Fry, won a unanimous decision. Of course, the next fight after that was Suinon Boonsorn. That was like a stay busy fight. And then now she's going to take on Sahi Ham, who is more experienced, still more experienced. Ayaka Hamasaki's strength of schedule just crushes Megumi Fujii's strength of schedule. Yes, Fujii was undefeated longer, had the longer winning streak, but Hamasaki is consistently taking on good top-tier opponents. There's practically no can crushing at all in Hamasaki's record compared to Fujii, who had 4, 5, 6 in a row. So what this all comes down to is, has Ayaka Hamasaki already surpassed Megumi Fujii's legacy? Now, I like both of these two. I was watching Fujii videos back in 2008, 2007, when I was still relatively new to MMA. I started watching the sport in 2005, quickly got into the women's divisions as well, and Fujii was in the midst of her, long win streak all the way up until the Frausto loss in Bellator. I'm a big fan of both of these fighters. But as far as the question goes, has Hamasaki already passed Fujii's legacy? I'm going to say yes. And it all really comes down to that strength of schedule. Hamasaki consistently facing top opponents all the time, whereas Fujii just had long stretches of fighting way less experienced opponents. Way less experienced opponents, fighting debutantes. To me, there's no question. Hamasaki has definitely surpassed Megumi Fujii's legacy. Of course, I'd love to hear people's responses to this, so let me know. All right, so that was it for episode number 47 of the WMMA Scene Report. Let me know what you think, especially on the discussion topic. I definitely want to hear people's opinions on the discussion topic. So let me know in the comments down below. Of course, likes are always appreciated. And hey, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the best, fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell for notifications. And we'll see you next time.